In today's reading exercise, we have an article from Aeon. It's a political science article. It's again a sub branch of social science. But how do we know it's political science? Because we have an article that speaks about freedom, speaks about other concepts like justice. Okay, so within study of society, it's political terminology rather. The reading difficulty of this particular article is somewhere between moderate and difficult. It's not moderate because it's a little denser. The ideas are slightly denser than what you would see normally, but it's not overtly difficult. Anyway, let's look at the article. In October 1951, Camus published The Rebel. In it, he gave voice to a roughly drawn philosophy of revolt. Okay, so you know that whatever you're going to talk about, whatever the author is going to talk about, or whatever you're going to learn going forward, by and large comes under the umbrella of something called the philosophy of revolt. This wasn't a philosophical system per se. Okay, and this is useless information because it was not that. If it's not that, then what's the point of remembering it? And also remember that when you see a buildup of this nature, it was not this. What it is always going to come later, and that's going to be the important piece of information. So as a reader, you have to clear up your RAM for that information. So it's not a philosophical system per se, just because it's called philosophy of revolt. But, and whatever comes on the right side of but, as we all know, is always more important. But an amalgamation of philosophical and political ideas, right? So it's not a philosophical system, it's an amalgamation of philosophical and political ideas, which means what are those ideas? That's going to get elaborated. Every human is free, but freedom itself is relative. Okay, so every human is free, not so important as what is on the right side of but again, right? So freedom itself is relative according to Camus. One must embrace limits, moderation, calculated risk. Absolutes are anti-human. So we understand what exactly was Camus' philosophical or political thought. Most of all, Camus condemned revolutionary violence. So it's philosophy of revolt, but it was actually discussing a constraint on revolutionary constraint on revolution, saying that Camus was not a big fan of violence per se, because he spoke about moderation, spoke about calculated risk. It's important for you to understand this because later you could encounter a question in reading comprehension that would ask you about, probably give you a few options and say which of these would Camus approve of. Okay, and you are looking for an option where you know that Camus approves of something that's moderate, not extreme, doesn't like radical ideas or radicalization of or overt radicalization of politics per se, or the fight for freedom, however you put it. Okay, violence might be used in extreme circumstances. He supported the French war effort after all. So again, this is where you could get an example specific question where you could be asked, why did the author mention the French war effort? It mentioned the French war effort because, go a little left, you'll find it, right? It's not that he was dead set against violence, because violence was justified even according to Camus in extreme circumstances. So we can also infer that whatever were the circumstances of French war effort were extreme according to Camus. But the use of revolutionary violence to nudge history in the direction you desire is utopian, absolutist, and a betrayal of yourself. So use of revolutionary violence to push history into a particular direction is utopian, absolutist, and betrayal of yourself. We'll discuss the word utopian a little later. But you understand, right? So the entire summary of this paragraph boils down to what was Camus' opinion, right? So, and it was called philosophy of revolt. So you have your keywords. All you have to remember is that the first para you read was about philosophy of revolt. What was it? Moderation is important. Did not really support violence unless there were exigent circumstances, right? So entire first paragraph could be just summarized to that Camus did not believe in violence except in extreme circumstances, believed in moderation as far as the idea of freedom is concerned, because freedom is relative. Second paragraph, absolute freedom is the right of the strongest to dominate, Camus wrote, while absolute justice is achieved by the suppression of all contradiction. Therefore, it destroys freedom. So if you notice, you are not encountering a new idea in this paragraph. This is like a subsidiary of the previous paragraph. The previous paragraph already gave you the main idea of what Camus was trying to say. This was elaboration of it. How do we know that this is elaboration? Because it's talking about what's bad with absolute freedom, and it's talking about what's bad with absolute justice. Okay, so both absolutes have a problem. Absolute freedom is the right of the strongest to dominate. Absolute justice is achieved by suppression of all contradiction. Therefore, it destroys freedom. Okay, so there's a negativity there. The conflict between justice and freedom required constant rebalancing. And again, this is where your wording is important, vocabulary is important. Rebalancing directly connects to the other word we've already discussed about, which is this moderation, right? So Conflict between justice and freedom required constant rebalancing, political moderation, acceptance and celebration of that which limits the most our humanity. So acceptance of humanity, so balanced. So Camus is asking for a balanced way of addressing things, a certain moderation in our political ideas or political goals, or where we go about things. To live and let live, he said, in order to create what we are. Okay, so you can understand that Camus was not to the extremes of anything. He was more moderate. He wanted people to live and let live, right? So basically, did not like one person dominating the other person or one ideology dominating the other ideology. Okay, so that's why Camus was against absolute freedom and absolute justice, because there were problems according to Camus when it comes to absolute freedom and absolute justice. Okay, so here the author is telling us about Camus' thoughts. So if you notice, this is what you call an explanatory tone in both the paragraphs. It's explanatory tone for the simple reason that the author is explaining to us certain ideas. Explanatory versus descriptive. The difference is obviously descriptive is something that's tangible. Explanatory is ideas, not tangible, right? So the author is explaining to us. Sartre read the rebel with disgust. Okay, so we have a very strong negative word. Sartre didn't really like what Camus was talking about. So we have a certain hostility here. Okay, as far as he was concerned, so you can already infer, right, what this guy would be about, because he did not like what Camus suggested. Camus suggested moderation. So you know what Sartre would say. As far as he was concerned, it was possible to achieve perfect justice and freedom. Okay, and this is always given for emphasis, so it's almost like a colon that describe the achievement of communism. So you know that is pro-communism. Under capitalism and in poverty, workers could not be free. Their options were unpalatable and inhuman, something that was not acceptable. Again, colon is elaboration. To work a pitiless and alienating job or to die. Okay, so these were their options. So either do a job that was alienating, that was pitiless, or they could die. They had no other choices. But, which is the strong word always, right? We know the important information is coming there. But by removing the oppressors and broadly returning autonomy to the workers, communism allows each individual. So Sartre was obviously pro-communism. Communism allows each individual to live without material want and therefore to choose how best they can realize themselves. This makes them free, and through this unbending quality, it's also just. So if you notice, what's the central dichotomy that is being presented in this particular paragraph? Dichotomy as along with the previous paragraph. Camus asked for moderation. Okay. On the other hand, Sartre is talking and said that absolute freedom and absolute justice cannot be had. Okay, and to live and let live in order to create what we are. So Sartre was more about allowing humanity to restrict us, but at the same time celebrating humanity and balancing it and whatnot. Sartre, on the other hand, is out and out pro-communism. What he's saying is that you remove the oppressors, you return the autonomy to the workers. Okay, and through that you can actually achieve what is called perfect justice and freedom, which according to Camus was not attainable. Okay, so you have a contradictory thought. And now you might wonder, okay, so what exactly is happening in this passage? So obviously there's more to come, but in this particular, whatever we've read in the 3 paragraphs, we see 2 different points of view. Okay, that this is what is called a dichotomy, where Camus believes something and Sartre believes something else. And there are strong words like disgust being used, because Sartre did not like one bit what Camus had to say. So that gives us some information as well. Okay, so tone is obviously explanatory. The tone is not argumentative. We'll get a little later, we'll get to that. You also want you to look at these 3 words. Okay, the 3 important, I mean, by and large there aren't too many funky words in this particular essay that we've discussed, but amalgamation, utopian, unpalatable, 3 words that you will encounter. One of 3 of the more difficult words, but you'll encounter them a lot. Okay, commonly used difficult words. What is amalgamation? Amalgamation is blending, combining, conflate. Okay, so these are the 3 words you will see often. So confluence of ideas. Okay. So be careful about words like these, for the simple reason that you should not waste that split second trying to memorize or trying to remember what that word was. It should come naturally to you. When you see amalgamation, you should imagine confluence. You should imagine things getting added up in a positive way. right? Utopian again is an ideal perfect world. Utopia comes from Thomas More's novel's name. You don't need to worry about the origin so much, but remember that if someone's talking about utopia, someone's talking about the ideal world where everything is perfect. So you'd also do well to remember the word dystopia. Dys being a negative prefix is the opposite of utopia. Dystopian worlds, for example, if you watched Mad Max or Hunger Games or any of those movies, you will see a proper dystopian world where even certain extent in some of the Star Wars, dystopian worlds where things are not ideal anymore, things are bad. You see deserts, you see people, some injustice prevailing, and a small group of people. Handmaid's Tale, for example, is a very good example of a dystopian society. So you'll see the word dystopian more often used more often than utopian. But remember that the two very important words, utopia and dystopia, powerful political concepts. Then you have unpalatable. Palate is the roof of your mouth, but it's used in a very metaphorical way. Palatable is something that you can stomach, something that you can digest, something that you can accept. Unpalatable is something that's not acceptable to you. So the options were unpalatable and inhumane, right? Unpalatable, something cannot digest. The fact that they have a pitiless and alienating job is not something that's acceptable to you. Okay, so uh, keep track of all these words, because there are hundreds of such words which editors absolutely love throwing into articles, but these are not words you would commonly use in your day-to-day language. So these words delay you for that split second. Okay, so across 4 or 5 different passages, if you encounter 15-20 words that keep delaying you by 2-3 seconds, that you would have lost a valuable precious minute. Okay, that's why we are discussing all these words. What I also want you to worry about is this. Okay, this is the central purpose or central idea of this particular passage. Okay, Camus versus Sartre's ideas of freedom and justice. So those are the keywords, right? First para, second para is about Camus. So you should be able to remember from your summaries, and summary is always about just 1 or 2 words. You remember the word moderation because it keeps popping up again and again. The fact that Camus didn't really like revolutionary violence, didn't believe in absolute freedom and absolute justice, versus Sartre, who believed in communism, power to the workers, okay, and a just world, okay, freedom and justice being perfectly given. Okay, so that's the central idea of whatever we've read. Okay, that's the dichotomy. The tone, and this is what I wanted to discuss. It's explanative, not argumentative. The reason it's not argumentative is very obvious for you to see. The author does not stake a claim on any of the opinions. It's argumentative only if the author is personally invested into a particular opinion, right? So the author is saying, hey, I do not agree with this particular view, and these are my reasons. That's called argumentative. Here, you see two contradictory thoughts or two opposing thoughts, rather not contradictory but opposing thoughts, but neither of them is the author's. That's why it's explanatory, because the author explained to you what Camus thought, the author explained to you what Sartre thought. The author did not invest into either of these notions. Therefore, the tone's not argumentative, the tone's explanatory. It's explanatory because ideas are being explained to you. It's not descriptive because nothing tangible. Okay, it's all intangible. Okay, hope that made sense to you, and hope that added 1 or 2 good habits to your reading. Until next time, thank you.